Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Messages. And I'm going to be doing something a little bit different this week. This podcast is going to be a bit more personal, except of course, I'm making it valuable for all of you. It's just that I'll fill you guys in on some bullshit that I had to deal with this week and essentially what was the catalyst for me even wanting to talk about this topic to begin with. So it's going to be a little bit personal, taking some time to make at least what I've learned and experienced a teaching moment for everybody else. And yeah, just a general update. I had some really big plans for March, like making it, a month of magic, basically. I love alliterations. I just can't help myself. And so this week I was actually supposed to do a podcast on manifestation, but I changed my mind. So instead, this week I'm going to be talking about the spiritual communities, New Age, Wicca, all variations of spirituality. So let me go into the story of basically how all of this started. And some of you may know I take a break from social media for a week each quarter. And during the break this time around, my cat got really sick. Overnight, out of the blue, out of nowhere, there were no signs, there was no indication. It was just completely sudden and hit me like a ton of bricks. Then it was spending 10 hours in the ER trying to figure out what's going on and having doctors tell me they don't really know exactly what it is. And it was just a lot of stress. And of course, I am quite open online with people, and I like sharing about what's going on with me and being real with people about what I'm going through and what my process is. And so I shared a little bit about it on my Instagram stories, and there was a delay in some of my content, and so I was just keeping people updated with what's going on because I know that I'm pretty much super consistent with the things that I put out. So I ended up saying in a story, there's a lot of stuff going on with Maynard, which is my cat, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm well aware of my limitations, some of the measures that I'm not willing to take because it would be too taxing on his well-being and his quality of life, and that's something that frightens me. Like, having to watch something that I love suffer is actually a massive fear of mine and something I'm not willing to do. I'm not willing to torture my animal and make my animal suffer for my peace of mind. It is 100% about Maynard's comfort and well-being, and that's the only thing I care about when I'm in that headspace. So I'm worn out, stressed, dead tired, and just under a lot of pressure. So then I get a message in my inbox with somebody that I didn't have a lot of rapport with. I just talked to briefly, but he had a question about a tarot deck recommendation, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll help you out. And that was like a couple weeks prior to this incident. And then this person started sending me voice memo after voice memo after voice memo, basically asking, I'm becoming a healer, and I'm doing this thing right now where I need to make sure that my heart chakra is much bigger than all of the others. And I was wondering if you would be able to check on that for me and see if I'm actually doing it right. And the approach that he was taking, I don't know what dogma he was falling under or what he was trying to listen to, but that is very, very far from the way that I practice personally. And so I explained, I said, some of the things that you're mentioning simply don't make sense. Like, it just does not compute with the way that I read. I'm sure there's a specific dogma that other people follow and they treat it like a religion, and that's fine. Do your thing. But that's not my style. That's not how I read. That's not what I do. And for the record, if you're just thinking about and visualizing your heart chakra being bigger, that's what it's going to be. You can contract, expand on demand at any moment. Like, it's something that happens in an instant. It's instantaneous. So all of you who are listening right now, if you just imagine a big ball of light growing in your chest, then voila, you're technically changing the size of it. Do I think that necessarily matters? No. Do I think that the size of your chakra is what indicates its health? Not necessarily. It all depends on the context. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Everyone's body is different. The same way our physical bodies are different, our energetic bodies are different. And so I don't play by any of these rules that he's describing to me, and I was trying to communicate this. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then I also wanted to let him know that if he needed to have me do an energy check for him, if he needed me to read something on him, which is what he was asking, that he would need to put himself on the books, because I'm not working for free. That's something that I have to set as a boundary. I mean, can you imagine what would happen if I just said, hey, everybody, it's a free for all. Any reading that you could possibly want, I'm going to give it to you for free. It would be an absolute nightmare. That would not be good. I would bleed dry and not have energy for anyone at all ever, which is why there is the energetic exchange between money and time and energy. And his response was, I don't need you to read my energy. I'm not asking you for anything. I don't need anything from you. I have a bunch of clairvoyant friends who can do this for free. I don't need anything from you. And I said, okay, I'm just letting you know what my boundaries are with all of this. And then he said, I don't know why you're dragging this out. You just like problems. You just like drama. You know, I haven't done anything wrong. All I'm doing is asking you for a favor. So I said, okay, I understand you don't think that there's anything wrong. I'm just letting you know that when you are asking someone to provide a service for free, it's very disrespectful. And for me, as a practitioner, it's my responsibility to let you know where the boundary is. That's my responsibility. And if I don't tell you where the boundary is, then I can't get mad at you, which is why I'm communicating this. And so he continued to send me more and more voice memos. He was projecting more and more and more. So finally, I just blocked him. You know, it was something that I thought he could potentially self-reflect, but he wasn't capable of self-reflection in that moment. So that's completely fine. But this is someone that will very likely evolve into a spiritual narcissist, because the lack of boundaries is a major red flag. So the lack of boundaries from a practitioner standpoint, the lack of respect across the board is a red flag. It's just something that is going to become more and more of a mess as time goes on. Now, let me be clear. This person is calling himself a healer. So this is where I start to get really concerned with spiritual communities across the board, is with shit like this. So when it comes to me, it's like I completely saw through his behavior, right? Like, I know that my only responsibility is to let people know where the line is when it comes to what's appropriate and what's not appropriate with me. That's my job. That's every professional's job. And that's what I was doing in that moment. And there's nothing wrong with it. And I stand by my actions 110%. And there are many people in this world who will think that I was rude and cold and mean and disrespectful to a follower. I'm sure there's a bunch of people who feel that way, and that's fine. The part that makes me concerned about spirituality, however, is that there are a lot of these people. A lot. This is not uncommon. It's not uncommon to see extraordinarily wounded, immature, unhealed people stomping around under the veil of spirituality. And I did a whole podcast episode on spiritual narcissists. So if you want to hear more about that, I tell you some stories about bad practitioners that I've dealt with and the nonsense that goes along with that. But anyway, at first I was just like, okay, one bad egg, not right for me, really not my style, moving on. So that's how it all started. Then I got another message on Instagram, and Instagram is one of the more peaceful platforms that I'm on. And this woman ended up telling me that basically I shouldn't have animals because my energy is bad, I'm a terrible person, and my cat being sick is all my fault, and my cat needs a real Wiccan. Okay, couple things. One, for those of you who wonder about that, if you've ever heard someone say, like, the reason why you're sick is because you have bad energy, or you have a tragedy in your life because you have bad energy. Anyone who says something like that is full of shit. I promise you that is not the reason why we have challenges in life. I promise you that's not the case. No, you don't just have bad energy. This world is very, very, very complicated. And the idea that it can be boiled down to you having good or bad energy is fucking childish, honestly. And so I shared about this, and of course it's another one of those things where it's like, oh God, it's just noise. But again, the concern isn't about me or like, people online who say mean things about me. It has nothing to do with that. The dark part of this is that this person is probably in the light and love crew. Someone who is walking around saying, I'm more spiritual than you, I know how to do it better, my energy is better, blah, 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 blah. It's this extreme spiritual superiority that is quite frightening. Because one of the things that I make sure to exercise in my sessions with people is I let people keep their autonomy. Like, we can talk about strategies and different things to try out and do and see what feels good. But really, the work comes down to, are you doing what feels right for you? I can consult you day and night. I can counsel you day and night. I can give you endless strategies, but at the end of the day, you are the only one who knows what's best for you. That's the bottom line. And I maintain that throughout each session. But when these people come into my space and start reflecting things like this weird spiritual dogma, or they start getting really holier than thou, or start saying vicious things about how, it's all your fault, it's all your fault, I am more concerned with the other people that they're impacting. That's actually where my concern grows. It's not about me, it's about who is actually buying into the shadow that they're spreading. Because it's very hard to discern for people who don't have a really strong crown or maybe aren't as confident in what they believe to be true. Those are the people who are going to be most susceptible to buying into something that is really black and white, really extreme, and really kills your spiritual self-esteem. Then I got even more messages from another person who was going on and on about how I'm doing everything wrong and I need to be holding my cat more because if I hold him more, that's actually what's going to save him. And look, I understand that people are very, very concerned with animal welfare and, it is a big deal. It is really sad when people aren't taking care of their animals and they're being neglectful or they're doing things that are outright wrong, right? But it was the most bizarre thing, like the amount of hatred just started compounding. And mind you, at this point in time with my stress level, I was not zen. I was not chill. I was not relaxed. I was like, I'm out for blood. Like, I ended up telling one chick, I'm like, you know what? You can go fuck yourself. Is that spiritual enough for you? Is that spiritual enough for you? I mean, because I will completely flip. If you get me on the wrong day, spirituality, light and love, fuck you. That's out the door. The gloves are off. And I am not afraid, nor do I shame that part of myself. It's like this world is complicated and I'm a multifaceted human being. And this idea that because I'm a spiritual practitioner and I do spiritual work means that for some reason I'm supposed to behave in a way that these ridiculous internet police believe I should be behaving is disgusting to me. It's just not right. And I'm also the type of person where it's like, I don't respond well to being told what to do. I just don't. So then I was like, you know what? I am just not going to give any more updates on Maynard. I am shutting this down. I thought it would be helpful to let people know what was going on, but these spiritual people are making me angry now. And this is where it just really is a hard pill for me to swallow, because I am so disenchanted by spiritual practitioners pretty much across the board. There's only a handful that I can even tolerate at this point in time, that it breaks my heart, truly, that there's so much shadow and invalidating the human experience that happens in spirituality just across the board, and how many bad eggs this stuff attracts. And it sucks. It really does, to the point where, of course, I'm never going to stop doing this work. I'm never going to stop helping people. I'm never going to stop supporting people as they heal and grow and evolve. I'm never going to stop doing my best. But man, there are times when I just wish I could tell people, like, if you over spiritualize everything, you will not like me. You just won't. I am the least spiritual, and I mean that in like a hokey way. I'm the least spiritual person you will ever meet. That's just how it is. And one of the things that I used to have in my Instagram bio was anti-New Age. And someone once asked me what that meant, and I ended up taking it out. I just needed to update my bio or whatever, but part of me wants to put it back because I am so disenchanted by pretty much everybody who does spiritual work. And let me explain. The way I view the world and the way I view my work is that I'm not living in some bubble where the only thing that exists for me is this spiritual dogma that I'm living in. No. It's actually the opposite. I consider every single human experience on earth to serve a purpose, including all of these haters who have now provided material for this podcast. Hello. One of the things that I find and consider to be most important when it comes to my values regarding this work is seeing the value and the godliness of every human experience that exists. And it has nothing to do with what you believe. I don't actually give a shit what you believe. It all beliefs matter. Atheists matter, Christians matter, even people who engage in spiritual practices that I consider to be really unsafe and unhealthy, those serve a purpose, and that's really none of my business. I can only know so much, and I only have my wisdom, my experience, and my being to share with people. That's the only thing I can really bring to the table. And I am not in a position where I can judge. I can audit whether or not I want you in my life, and I can decide whether or not I consider you to be safe when it comes to spiritual practices, being a healer, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean anything else. It doesn't mean anything else about your value as a human being. It doesn't mean anything about whether or not you are good or bad. It's simply the way you are relating to me in this lifetime. That's really all it is. And so I try to zoom out as much as I can, and it doesn't matter if you are a mad scientist in a lab, or if you've been in a lifetime of addiction, or if you're doing philanthropic work. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. It all has value. everything. And that's my whole thing is like, I don't have people like conform and bend the knee to my way of thinking. That's fucking ridiculous. What I do is I meet you where you're at, because one of my gifts is I'll find God in pretty much anything. Even if that's contrast, even if that's darkness, even if that's something really unsatisfying. So I'm well aware that the people who resonate with my work are essentially tuned into the same frequency, where it's not about right think, wrong think. That's something that I completely disagree with, because there's all varieties and all spectrums of experiences, and it's very unlikely that anything is going to do well as a one-size-fits-all treatment. And so that has been my biggest struggle with pretty much the entirety of New Age anything, spirituality anything, and I've been really fortunate to have some kick-ass teachers who really respect autonomy and know their humanity, and that's been something that I've called into my life, and in large part that's just because of how I am and who I am. And like I said, I don't follow groupthink very well. You know, I'm questioning pretty much everything and looking for more at all times. So it's just been really shocking to see the amount of hatred that has been given to me, especially from people who claim to be spiritual. You know, that's just a dark reality. And all of this, of course, comes from a lack of healing. The only people who are actually going to go out of their way to tear others down and be really vile, you know, in ways that have blown my mind, it's like that's coming from a wounded place. And even if someone is saying light and love, light and love, light and love, that's not enough. It's not enough to say that and not practice it. That simply isn't going to cut it, at least to me. And the other issue here is people not focusing on their own healing. I mean, I could honestly say that when it comes to people who gravitate towards healing work, the number of people who call themselves healers or therapists or, you know, people who gravitate towards healing work as a whole, whether it be spiritual or more on the clinical side of things, a lot of them are not doing their own work, which is a massive issue. Because if you are not doing your own work, if you are not well aware of your wounding and your biases and your issues and your triggers, and if you aren't extremely intimate with the parts of you that are human, you are a danger to others, period. And it's sad to say, it's like I've even had teachers get dangerous on me, where all of a sudden it's like they were safe and then all of a sudden they were blind to the biases and the things that they were projecting onto others, and that's where it becomes unsafe. It goes from being okay to holy shit, that's not good in an instant. So the more blind you are to what's happening within yourself, the more likely you are to risk harming another person. And it's not even intentionally, right? It has nothing to do with, I mean, there's always going to be people who want to inflict harm on others, right? That's definitely always going to be there. But for many people, they're completely blind to the lack of safety and the ethical problems in what they're doing. So as healers, as practitioners, it's one of those things that is like there's such a massive pool of unsafe people, which is hard. It can make it really challenging to find healthy healers, in all honesty. And in the same breath, it's a practice where you have to constantly be auditing yourself and how you're doing. I mean, I do it still to this day. I'm constantly doing it. As soon as you fall into autopilot, if you're doing healing work, you're in trouble. And there have been times when just through reflection, I'm like, that didn't go as well as I wanted it to, or I wish I would have said this or done this differently, or this is how I would have approached it a different way, or there's just constant tweaking and healing that needs to be done within yourself if you're doing this work. And I just think that healers get lazy and complacent, and spiritual people cling to buzzwords instead of actually doing the fucking work. And it's like, you can talk about karma day and night, but that's not going to override the actual work that needs to be done here. And I don't think that spirituality is something that you can use to just skate over practical issues. So that's the main thing that I see so often. And I just think that it does make it hard, because there's a lot of things that are really popular, and I'm just trying so hard to be a balanced voice of reason, which isn't always the most popular position to take. And it's just one of those things that I'm super committed to. I'm super committed to validating your human experiences and not telling you, well, you just have bad energy. What good is that really going to do for anybody? So when I started seeing this coming towards myself, it's just awful. It's just awful, because I know that this is happening all over the place with all sorts of people. And so hopefully, if there's anything this does, ideally, I would just like this to break some echo chambers, get out of the love and light, you're just thinking wrong. And yeah, thoughts are important. Yeah, redirecting your attention and focus is a really important skill. But this idea that you can somehow override human nature and the human experience at all times is far-fetched. And if there's anyone who's telling you that this world is either all good or all bad, or if they have all the answers and they're the guru and anything like that, I would be extremely skeptical. And make sure you vet your healers. Make sure that if you are going to practitioners, if you are even a beginner in spirituality at all, if it's something you're just dipping your toe in the water with, really look at who these people are. And I would encourage you to really look at their body of work. It's like, go through all of my work. If you've considered working with me, listen to all of my podcasts. Go through, decide for yourself, check in. Do I feel safe to you? Does it seem like I have the right personality for you to work with? Do I have the right wisdom for you? It's one of those things. Don't make me an exception. You should be just as critical of me and the information that I share as anyone else's. And I'm here for it, right? Because the only thing that I care about is your safety and me doing my absolute best to stay as healthy and ethical as I possibly can for the safety of the people that I work with. Period. That is my goal. And I can't say that I am perfect. Wish I could. And I'll do my absolute best, but my priority then becomes my ability to repair things and reflect over perfection, because I know that's a losing battle, whereas staying safe and being able to repair, that's something I can always do, So anyway, know who you're working with, and be skeptical of people who tell you there's only one way to do things, or tries to speak in absolutes. Be really suspicious of those people, because a lot of the time it's coming from a manipulative place. And those who can't lean into the gray area and who are failing to capture the full nuance of the human experience are really going to put you at high risk of being in an unsafe situation or unsafe practitioner-client relationship or teacher-student relationship, whatever the context may be. Okay, anyway, back to our story. So I stopped sharing what was going on with Maynard on social media. I was just done with it. I couldn't take the messages anymore. They were making me really angry. And nobody likes being judged like that. You know, people don't have any context or have any clue what's going on, and they're throwing all of these judgments at me. I had just had enough. Then on Wednesday night, things with Maynard just got worse and worse and worse, and he told me he had had enough. He was just done, like telling me no more. And of course, I'm not going to give that many details about it because obviously I don't want to relive it and it's private. But I did end up having to put him down, which was the last thing that I wanted to do, which obviously breaks my heart. I'm taking crying breaks as I'm recording this, but at a certain point it just became absolute torture for him, and that's not something that I would ever let him stay on earth to experience. You know, I'm not letting him stick around so that he can suffer and be tortured and endure just a lifetime of suffering. So this time, if you don't follow me on Instagram, I do a full moon and new moon portrait each time a moon comes around. And so I dedicated one to Maynard because all of this started during the Pisces new moon. And that's where I broke the news, because he, you know, was a character that would appear from time to time on my story on Instagram. And, you know, people asked about him and liked seeing him. And, you know, he was my sidekick. And so I did share that, and as I was, because it's been very important for me to share grief with people online. It's been so amazing and helpful to talk about it and write about it and show it to people and not keep it in the closet. It has been beyond helpful. And so I've been processing really openly and being transparent with that part of myself. And I got even more hateful comments coming in, more and more and more. And by that time, I had such little energy to give that I really didn't emotionally react. But I mean, one of the people was like threatening to destroy my career, essentially. I mean, it's an empty threat. You can't destroy my career. I've helped too many people. Sorry to all of you who want to take me down. But it's just absurd to me. And I mean, the messages that I was being sent were so vicious. I can't even wrap my mind around the time that person took. And I mean, paragraphs worth of messages, just with the cruelest things. And it was just one of those weeks where, even though these people are trying to kick me while I'm down, it ended up feeling so much brighter than I was expecting. It's like, obviously, I'm dealing with all of this grief, and it's been really dark and really bleak and really horrible. And as I said, I've been processing it a lot, but it's really shown me who is there and how many people are supportive and how many people I have helped and what I'm actually here to do. And it just solidified a lot of that. Despite all of this contrast that I've been experiencing, it's almost like having that much hatred thrown my way and people trying to really rattle me has backfired and made me feel more confident, more grounded, more secure in who I am and what I'm doing. And that in itself is the gift that I've received. So just know that if you happen to have a lot of hatred and judgment being thrown your way, this world is far more nuanced than one person's projections, and especially be wary of anyone wearing a spiritual mask in doing those things, or a healer mask in doing those things, violating boundaries, saying hateful, hurtful things, being cruel. Anything like that is not actually a reflection of a higher power, God, the universe, whatever you like to work with. You guys know I don't really care what you call it. Most of us are just getting at the same thing. And I will address, because I know I did get a couple questions about Wicca. Now, I can't speak from experience because it's not something that I give a lot of energy or attention to. I, of course, have been called a witch, like as a colloquial term, but it's not something where I actively like practice anything even resembling witchcraft. It's like, sure, we can just like say I'm witchy, I guess, but in terms of like Wicca itself, it's something that I typically keep my nose out of. I don't like I'm just not a fan. Like I haven't found anything that I've been particularly gravitated towards or interested in, and I haven't heard anything good about it. As a matter of fact, I have only heard mean, nasty things about people who gravitate towards that. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, again, where it's like, wish it was different. I wish I could say something else, but until I get the data, I can't really make that conclusion. I can't, say anything more about it. So I'm not into that. And just for the record, I do not practice it. I am not interested in it. I want nothing to do with it. I don't consider myself to be associated with it. And that's how I like to keep it. Anyway, I'm still integrating a lot of the information that's come through this week and all of the stuff that I've gone through and all of the grief that I'm experiencing, because believe it or not, it's actually one of the things that I don't have as much experience doing. I've had to grieve people who are still alive. I've had to grieve relationships. I've had to grieve all sorts of things like that, but this emptiness, this type of grief that I'm going through now is new for me, and I'm still learning a lot about it. But one thing I know for sure is that when people are doing nothing but spreading hatred and judgments and are in a state of comparison based on limited information that they have, those people are most definitely not doing God's work. That is one thing that I know for sure. We are all trying to live the best life possible, at least the majority of us. And I really do believe that the majority of people are doing their best, even if they're misguided. And that's all I've got for today. I hope this has been helpful. And I should also mention that if you would like to send a little bit of support, I have decided to get, I can't believe I'm saying this right now, but I am getting a memorial tattoo for Maynard, which I was not expecting, but I just can't help but need him on my skin forever. So I will drop the link to my PayPal. Send me $1, send me $100, whatever. Of course, you're not obligated, but I just know that it would be awesome to get the tattoo fully funded. Like, there's something about that. I've already had people send money for it, and my birthday is coming up, and I'm just really excited to make that a reality and be able to dedicate a piece of art to him. And I don't know, I'm just feeling really called to do that. And so if it feels right to you, the link is in the description box if you are watching on YouTube. Otherwise, I will leave it in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. Yeah, and that's all that I've got for now. I'm just working through all of this grief, and then once I get through this, then I'll be able to bring you Beautiful People of Grief episode, because then I'll actually have the information to give to you, which is what I'm pretty much doing with all of my experiences. So I also want to give a special shout out to the people who have been really supportive, especially online, especially on Instagram. Like, to those of you who are on my Instagram and have just been in my DMs and in my comment section and all of that, know that I am so grateful to you. Truly, like, I cannot emphasize that enough. I absolutely adore you guys. The internet is awesome. Don't let other people tell you otherwise. The internet is truly amazing. For how much shady shit goes on, there's also amazingness online. And I always aim for my content to be part of something that brightens your life and gives you support and makes this world a better place. That is what I'm here to do, and that is what I want to give to you. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you all so much. I, again, appreciate you more than you know. And if you want to get on my newsletter, go to onyxhealing.com/newsletter, and you'll get a weekly message from me. If you like my written work, I do written messages each week, and you'll get updated on new stuff. And even though my manifestation class has been delayed, that is something that I'm anticipating getting out this week, because work is really, really healing for me right now, and it is super helpful for me to have things to work on. So I'll keep you in the loop. I am sending you all so much love, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.